Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to X and O's to Joe's. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me. I know it's been a long time since I have come to you with a board talk, and I know that it's Friday, and for a lot of you coaches out there, high school, today is game day. I don't know about you, but for me, on game days, I tend to get a little bit more antsy. So one of the things that I actually do is I will sit down and draw out plays and designs and go over things on a Friday to kind of keep my mind, at ease. One of the things I was thinking about, and one of the things that especially I think youth and high school coaches make a mistake of is they look at cover three and they just think simple. While that might be true, I think also we forget the fact that cover three has its value. And so I was like, well, why does cover three get such a bad rap? You hear a lot of people, oh, well, cover three, I've had a lot of success running true legitimate cover three. And I'm going to just give you 5 tips that I have learned over the years that helps me to run cover three successfully that I believe will help you take your cover three coverage to another level. So without further ado, just remember, the reason that people think cover three is bad is because they're always afraid of the 4 verts. They're always afraid of the 4 verts. If it wasn't for the four verts, I think a lot of people would be more inclined to roll with cover three. So I'm going to show you how it is you're able to take care of those things just by doing these 5 things to make yourself better at running cover three. The first thing you have to understand about cover three is you cannot take your underneath coverage for granted. There's a reason why it's there. It's cover three, these 3 people over the top, which means that those 4 guys that you're bringing underneath for coverage, they really have to understand or know what it is they do. So it doesn't matter whether you're in a 3-man front or a 4-man front. The idea is you need a curl to flat defender. You need a hook to curl defender, a hook to curl defender, and a curl to flat defender. Now, when you look at these coverages, immediately you see field zones. Curl to flat, here, hook to curl, here, hook to curl, here, and curl to flat, here. You have to be able to teach these guys what they're supposed to do so that they're not busting in the underneath coverage. One of the things that I see happen underneath is that these people think that they're supposed to be man-to-man defenders. And if they're not man-to-man defenders, then guess what they're doing? They're setting you up for failure. Now, we go back to here. What is the responsibility of your curl to flat defender? His job is not to go immediately to the flat. His job is to disrupt number 2 from going vertical immediately, and then he is going to rally to anything into the flats, and that's important. I'm telling you that he's going to rally to anything in the flats because why are we guarding an area if there's nobody there? Now, if we're rallying to the flat, that means he's supposed to be the first person there, but there are other people coming. So yes, they're going to probably, most likely, complete a pass in the flats. But that should be only good for a couple yards. Now we're playing a second and long, a third and long, a third and medium. You get the idea. The hook to curl defenders, because they usually have to check run first, they check run and they're replacing where the curl to flat defender essentially vacates. So they're working middle to the vacated area from the curl to flat defender. So when we get a slant flat concept out of these guys, when that curl flat defender jumps to flat, the hook curl defender replaces to rob the slant. That is all predicated on number 2. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the idea is these two guys essentially splitting the hashes should be able to cover anything that comes across the middle or into this hook area where they are responsible for taking over if the curl to flat defender vacates the curl to go to the flat. The second thing to understand is the purpose why you're running cover 3. This is really important. You have to understand why it is you're running cover 3. Well, because we don't want to get beat over the top and we want to have solid underneath coverage. This is not a coverage that you're running if you want to bring heavy pressure, because if you bring more than 4, you are now not playing cover 3. When you bring a 5th person and you have the 3 under, 3 over, that's not cover 3. And when you call it cover 3, you give cover 3 a bad name. If you're running some type of combination coverage where you're running cover 1 or a man on one side and a cover 3 on the other side, that's not cover 3. You're giving cover 3 a bad name. Cover 3 is designed to be a 7-man coverage. So if you're not using 7 men, you're not playing cover 3. We don't want to get beat over the top, and we want to have good underneath coverage. We don't want to get beat by the post, by the fade, or by the seams, and we want to have good underneath coverage. We want to make teams drive the ball down the field. 10, 15 play drives. Any offense that relies on the big play or the quick strike, those are the types of offenses that don't really want to see cover 3, because they know there's 3 guys deep keeping us from going over the top. So as long as you've got that good underneath coverage and you've got those 3 guys over the top, you should be good when it comes to running cover 3. The third thing you need to know about cover 3 is greed is evil in the cover 3. You have to make sure that these guys know it's okay for guys to catch balls in front of them as long as they rally and tackle. You have to know that these cornerbacks out here and this free safety, they have to understand that it is okay if someone catches a ball in front of them as long as nothing gets over the top. Greed is evil. When your cornerback decides, I'm going to jump this route, this underneath route, even though my job in cover 3 is deep third, I'm going to jump this underneath route. That's when they get hit with a wheel. That's when they get hit with a corner. That's when they get hit with double moves over the top. This is not man-to-man. And you'll hear me say that a lot over the next few minutes. This is not man-to-man. So they have to understand that's not my man. Whomever comes into my zone, that's my man. I don't have this outside receiver. I have this zone, this deep third. And so as long as I'm not greedy, I should be able to do great work in a cover 3 versus this team. Now, we're back to the board here. Number 2 is really important. I need all of you people to stop reading number 1 in a cover 3. You have to read number 2, because number 2 gives you an indicator of what number 1 is going to do. When it comes to these one, number one and number two, that's the outside receiver is number one, the inside receiver is number two. When it comes to understanding how to defend those guys, we have to understand number one can do a lot of stuff. But if we're reading number one, we can't be looking at two. But because our job is to read number two, we know exactly what number one's going to do based off of what number two does. If number two goes outside immediately, we know number one's coming inside. Watch this. If number one goes inside immediately, do we know that number two's going outside? Absolutely not. Because number one could do a slant and number two could do a slant. But if number two goes outside, where's number one going? He's got two places he can go. Number two goes outside, number one can go vertical, or number one can go inside. That's it. If number one goes inside, number two can go inside, number two can go vertical, number two can go outside. There are all of those dynamics for number two if we're looking at number one. But if we're looking at number two, if number two goes vertical, then we hold two. If number two goes out, we jump two. So the curl to flat defender, his job is to read two. If two goes vertical, he carries two unless number one stops in the flat. So you get a vertical here, my curl flat defender, he's carrying, he's going to collision, right? Because he's going to be lined up inside. He's going to collision number two, carry. If number one doesn't hitch, he's going to rally to number one. That's his job. He's the curl flat defender. The hook curl is going to read two. If two disappears, meaning if two goes and slants, if two goes out, he's going to look at one. So he's going to read two. If two goes vertical, he's going to stay getting depth. If two disappears, he's going to look for one. So if number two goes out, he's looking for one coming back on the slant. If number two goes in, he's looking for number one coming in on the slant. If two goes and runs out, he's looking for number one on the curl. That's his job. If number two goes vertical and he's staying with two because he's reading two, if number one doesn't hitch and the curl flat defender leaves to jump one, he's still with number two. So he's still taking care of, number two is, even deeper down the field. So we have to stop reading number one and start reading number two. Here's where the cornerback comes in at. Your cornerback, his job is to read two. His job is to read two. He's getting depth. If number two goes vertical, he looks one, he's got one now. Goes vertical, excuse me. If number two goes out, he looks number one, he's staying deep. He's playing 2-1. So he should be playing number 2-1. If 2 disappears, he's looking for 1. Meaning if 2 goes inside, he's looking to 1. Still keeping his deep third. If number 2 does an out route, he's looking to 1. Still keeping his deep third. He's responsible. Now, because he's reading 2, when 2 goes vertical, If 2 stays vertical, if goes vertical, he's playing between, so he's able to see. If 1 stops, he makes that call, China, 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 or red, 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 or stick, stick, stick. Now this dude knows he has to get to that hitch. His job is not that hitch. His job is not the curl. His job is not anything underneath. His job is deep third. So I'm going to read 2, and if 2 comes vertical and 1 comes vertical, he's playing in between 2 and 1. So he's reading 2, he's down a deep ball. If they throw a ball deep to number 1, he's in position to play it. If they throw a ball deep to number 2, he's in position to play it. The free safety, if they throw a deep ball to number 2, he's in a position to play it. So if they're playing their proper positioning, there should be no problem in taking this deep guy who's been collisioned by the curl to flat. He's being hounded by the hook to curl. And now he has a corner on this side and on this side. The only way to throw him the ball is to throw it over these guys' heads, which means he has to lob it, which means these guys have an opportunity to get to it. That's the corner and the free safety. They should have the opportunity to get there. And that all comes from looking at 2, reading what 2 is going to do, and then deciding from there. Now, what about the comeback? That's what people always get at. What about the comeback? Well, once again, watch how this works. He runs the comeback at 15 or 17 back to 15. That's a deep route. He's not doing anything out here if that guy has a comeback other than maybe a flat route. So you might get a flat comeback concept. If you do, watch. He runs the flat. Curl flat defender takes him. Hook to curl is here. Number 2 is gone. There's only number 1. Where's the cornerback's eyes going to be at? Number 1. If 2 goes out, he's got 1. That's his guy. So now when he runs that comeback that the cornerback is on top of, he can just drive on the comeback right now. He doesn't have to worry about being in trail mode because he should be on top of it. If that guy runs a curl, hook the curl guy's there, he's rallying to the shoulder on a throw. So either way, this cornerback should be in position to attack on the comeback, to rob if there's an errant pass on the curl. Hook the curl has it. If not, curl the flat guy is on there. And if for some reason this guy willed, because he's still behind, if that guy disappears and tries to run a post, he's in between. All he did was exchange the 2 to 1. So he's still there. That's how you win football games in cover 3. That's how you keep them from being able to beat you over the top, to crush your soul. Now, the number 1 thing that people always forget when they're talking about cover 3, you got to stop lining your cornerback up on number 1. Stop lining him up on number 1. You know why? Because when you line him up on number 1 being the outside receiver, you make him think he's in man-to-man. So when you line your cornerback up on number 1, even if it's 7 yards off the ball, if you line him up over top of number 1, he thinks he's in man-to-man. Take that away. Allow him the opportunity, because this curl to flat guy, he's going to be on inside of number 2, and he can be up closer. Allow this cornerback to line up between number 1 and number 2. So now he's going to split the difference 7 yards back. I know what you're thinking. Oh my gosh, he's 7 yards back. In between them, we can just throw that guy hitch routes all day. Well, go ahead and try it. Like, test it out in practice. Just have him run his cover 3 principles, and see if you can get stuff off with these 2-man concepts. If you can, guess what? Change it. Cover 3 is probably not for you. Because when you put this guy over top number 1, he immediately thinks he's responsible for number 1. But if you split the difference between 1 and 2, because in cover 3, he's responsible for the hash to the sideline, if you put him in position between 1 and 2, he can just play anywhere between the hashes and the sideline. That allows him to be more successful. He's dropping back, right? Is he responsible for the hitch? No. He's responsible for the hitch. Is he responsible for the curl? No. He's responsible for the curl. So watch what happens in a curl flat. Now he gets out. He's cover 3, right? They run a curl flat. He jumps the flat. He jumps the curl. What's the problem? He takes his steps. He's here. You run a curl. He steps in front of the curl. The curl flat's not an immediate, right? Slant flat. He runs a slant. He runs a flat. He's going to attack the flat. He's there. He's attacking the slant. What's the problem? You're over the top. Your cornerback's over the top for support. So we're taking away those 2-man concepts and allowing our cornerback to play in between instead of lining him up directly over number 1. Now you're really treating him like he's a zone corner instead of having him play outside. Remember, they're in the NFL for a reason. So we have to stop treating our kids like they're NFL kids and allow them to have the better opportunity for success within the scheme. So putting him lined up 3 yards, 4 yards away on the outside shoulder of number 1 does not help your cause. You're giving up the inside quickly. You're not using the sideline as your friend. Most receivers, they always go too far wide anyway. And if you see a receiver come in short, you already know what he's doing. He's setting me up for an outbreaking route. Hey, be alert of the outbreaking route by number 1. Look where he's lined up at. So now you make your cornerbacks smarter football players. And you give yourself the best opportunity for success in this scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for X and O's and Joe's. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me. Rate the show. I mean, make sure that you comment. If you like it, if there's other things that you want to see, I'm going to try to get these things out here at least once a week if I can. I know for a lot of our youth coaches, it's great because they get a chance to see this. For the high school coaches, you pick up some tips as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask this. Make sure that you follow me on all my social media at Gene Clemens. Until next time, good luck on Friday.